Welcome to Chronicles of Old Singapore. This is Dr Loh KS, and I speak to people about their memories of Singapore before it became a global city. Today I'm speaking to Charles Ngui. He's come back to suffer my interrogation on his memories of Old Clementi. We've done in the last 3 episodes, and as well we are going to break new ground today. About a place not too far away from Clementi, actually. How are you, Charles, today?
I'm doing good, thank you. I'm happy to be connected again, and thanks, folks, for visiting us and subscribing to the channel. I think there's so much in store at this channel that would enrich our lives. And really, the whole idea is that you folks listening out there, I'm sure you have a story, and then you say, there's always someone better that can tell the story. But really, I'm learning it. The best story comes out of me, and being able to relate that, in a relational way. And Kaseng does a fantastic job in facilitating that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles. I mean, there's certainly a place for history, and I'm a historian and I go through the sources to document the history. There's also a place for people to, speak about what they did in the past and to recall so that the society at large is aware of these things. And I think this is no more true than the topic of our discussion today, which is on especially technical education. Maybe let me just give a short introduction to our topic today. In my book on Singapore's industrialization history, Theatres of Memory, I talked about. I have a chapter on this group of people which I think have been neglected in Singapore history, called a technical generation. Right. So these were the people who used their hands and technical expertise in the industrial occupations to drive Singapore's industrialization push in the 60s to the 90s. And they are, of course, still very important today, right? Because much of our industrialization depended on the ability, the experience, the expertise of these folks. However, in our history, we have always been rather biased against technical education. We still are. There are many Singaporeans who do not want to take up technical jobs today, especially those that don't pay well and require you to be in the field and to sweat and work with machines, heavy machinery. And this is historical. This goes back to our history, actually. In a way, is sort of a straight Chinese mentality that the best work, the best jobs are to be found in the clerical and the white collar and the administrative. So if you look at the Straits Times and other newspapers in the 50s and 60s, there's always been this debate about the white collar brigade, right? That people want their children to go to schools where they can, learn the academic subjects and then get a good job in an office and with air conditioning, not having to use their hands, which is a bit strange because most people came to Singapore in the colonial period with little education, actually used their hands a lot in the making of their own livelihood and the making of Singapore as a successful city-state. So this is what we try to pry into today to get some memories, recollections about using the hands, right? Working with machinery, working with tools, learning in a workshop, working under masters, and those kinds of experiences that are part of our technical history. So I think I've spoken enough, and I do have a bit more history to relate later on. Charles today is an example of this technical generation, and it wasn't always easy to persuade him and other folks from his generation to talk about their traits. I think this is maybe reflective of the fact that we don't appreciate them very much. So I'm going to try to show my appreciation today. And we're going to go to a place that's not too far away from Old Clementi. It's a few minutes walk actually, to the Bukit Timah area. So yeah, welcome you to you again, Charles. And let's go back to your school days. Charles, when was it that you enrolled in secondary school?
This is after I finished my PSLE at Monk's Hill, which was in Newton. And the results, as an average student, I wasn't the best. And I learned that my learning styles were more from observing, watching, asking questions, and just getting some technical guidance or some, some assistance. And that was my best learning experience. Anyway, um, it was just during those days, right in '63. Yeah, that's when it was. They just started technical school, or this whole idea of technical schools. And I guess the results spoke for itself. And I was just posted to this new school called Dunearn Secondary Technical School. I was initially quite a bit, how would I put it, not knowing what to expect from my time in technical school, because my other siblings, I have six others that were in the normal school, and none of them could relate anything about technical education. Anyway, that was the school I was posted to, and it was a brand new school. In fact, I was the pioneer batch in 1964 when I entered the school. And I was quite shocked that morning in January 1964, because I realized that I wasn't the one going to school there. I thought it was just a you know, boys' school, but I was surprised to find girls in that school as well. And I subsequently found out that actually another school called Whitley was borrowing the premises because their own school was not ready.
I just want to ask you a question, Charles, which is, what about your parents? What did they have a thought about you going to a technical school?
Well, from my parents' side, I think my mother didn't have any specific preference. She was very open to my father's opinions, perhaps from my elder siblings, but none of them were in the technical sector, so they couldn't really give a good opinion. But I guess the one that really steered um, weighed heavily was my dad's experience, because he was a civilian working in the British Army base in Ayer Rajah. So in all things technical, he's aware that it's an area where there's a lot of skills, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of opportunities, and it's a wide open world out there. So
I
yeah, he
didn't
was.
know that. What did your father do?
Well, his last position, as I recall, was a progress planner. You see, that base up in Ayer Rajah Camp uh, at that time was the 40 base. It belongs to the British uh, Army, called the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. And as the name suggests, it's something to do with electrical and then mechanical trades. So all that is in the British military um, logistics that is involved, electrical and mechanical, will find its way into that place where it is maintained, repaired, and even retrofitted to the latest whatever technologies that they have. And in that base there, they had fitters, people who are working on metal. They had coach trimmers. These are the ones that will sew cushions for the vehicles. And then they had panel beaters that will repair the vehicles that have been beaten up. Anyway, it goes a whole range of vehicles, from road vehicles on wheels up to tracks, that means tanks. So my dad's job as a progress planner is to be able to tell the unit that has sent the vehicle in for repair when it would be completed and when it would be sent out. So the whole entire process, he would need to track it, know it, and even troubleshoot it if it should get stuck along the way, maybe short of spare parts or whatever.
So,
But
as a planner, was this a desk job or a field job?
it was a combination. It's mainly desk. That means you're there to, collate the data. But a field portion of it will be really walking into the different parts of the large workshop, which will be a huge area, almost like 4 football fields, and it's so huge that they they have a board in their planning office, and which will tell that which vehicle came in and then where it is at that time. So they literally have a production control board, a huge thing. I could tell that because what happened was, when I did my national service in 1971, I was posted to the same location because the British had given that to Singapore SAF, right?
Yeah.
And it was then called Ayer Rajah Camp. So all that they were doing during 40 base REME days, repairing trucks, cars, motorcycles, outboard motors, tanks, armored personnel carriers, and all that, became Ayer Rajah Camp. And I was there for almost like close to 18 months at that location. So, but just to answer your question, the influence of my dad to encourage me to try out this new area of technical education was well worth it.
Yeah. Before we go back to technical education, I just want to pursue this a little bit because I didn't know at all that your dad was part of the workforce in the British bases, which is something I've always been interested in. What happened to your dad, if anything, when the British left?
Yeah, there were a twist of events. I think for some reason, I don't know how it happened. My dad was knocked down by a lorry, I'm told. He wasn't severe enough, but he apparently there were no external superficial injuries. But apparently that knock was quite severe, because later on, through that short hospitalization visit, they found out that he had heart trouble, and then basically he just resigned from the British Army then.
So this is before the pullout.
Yeah, I would say shortly before the pullout.
You had joined the school already by the time, or before?
I think I had already. This was after. The pullout was in
67,
Um,
68. That's the
yeah,
beginning of
yeah.
it. Yeah.
No, that was before when I joined the school. It was
Yeah.
before all that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And your dad had already left the forces
yeah,
before
yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
So he wasn't affected by the pullout. Okay.
No,
So
no.
basically, he retired after that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. If I may add to the
Yep.
excitement of that area, they had close to perhaps like maybe like 200 civilians working in that base. These are people that would not want to wear an army uniform. They were not wanting to subject themselves to military discipline and all that. So the way how I think the British Army got around that was to offer them a civilian job.
Mm.
So they will come in their civvies, in their old uniform, to that place in Ayer Rajah from all over Singapore, as far as from Changi, from Naval Base, and there will be lorries. These are open lorries with a canvas top that is foldable. You know, think of those days that there were no air-conditioned buses or coaches at all. So they will be riding on the back of these lorries. Their seats were actually um, just planks placed behind the open trucks on the open backs of the lorries, and of course they are anchored, and there will be rows and rows of people sitting on those at the back there, while the I mean this was a practical transport system to bring people all over from Singapore to their workplace.
Mm. You're right. You have quite a rich memory of your father's job and his work. Um, so just for clarification a little bit, maybe. So your dad was quite encouraging when he found out that you were posted to Dunearn Tech.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So he didn't say like technical job, no good.
No, no. I must say that he probably was biased because he loves to work. He loves to work with his hands, whether
Mm,
it's
mm, mm.
in the kitchen or repairing a bicycle or a mechanical part or even a radio. He took great expense to in those days. I think somewhere in the early 50s to even enroll with a correspondence course learning about electronics. I think it was Chicago Technical Institute or something like that. Yeah.
Did he convey that love, for the machines and tools to you when you were young?
I think he demonstrated it more than he kind of conveyed it or
Mm.
encouraged.
Well,
So
directly or
encouraged.
indirectly, intentionally
Yeah,
or
yeah.
accidentally.
Yeah, I've been technical here, but I guess you're right. That
Right.
yeah, he did much encouragement.
That's lovely to hear. I think that plays a very important role, at least in that period, that the child grew up, with an appreciation for the love of the tools and the machines, and taking things apart, putting it back. I've heard that many times actually among people who went into those technical traits, and I think a lot of Singaporeans still love that. It's just that they are often pushed, right, by their parents into academic stream and into desk jobs and all that. So thanks for sharing that, Charles. Really appreciate that. So tell us, Charles, about physically, right, locationally, Dunearn Tech.
Wow, that's $1 million question.
Big question, of course, coming
Yeah,
coming at
yeah.
you.
I think the easiest point of reference will be the National Junior College along Dunearn Road.
Right.
So that during that year, 1964, the school was newly built. It was one of 6 technical schools that were planned by the government um, to be set up to provide technical education. And this hill was right on top of this school was right on top of the hill. Um, when we got enrolled there, actually the workshops were all so new. Even the teachers there were new, especially the technical teachers. The science lab was also new, and during that time, you could either do metal work or woodwork. These were the two specific courses of study. I mean, common courses would be like doing engineering science, which is a mixture of physics and then mainly physics, I would say, and then some electricity principles in there, and then of course the other social subjects, academic like literature. It, we even did a funny kind of history, as I described it. It was called social studies, and the social studies basically don't go such a deep, in-depth study of of specific country. It gives you an overall purview. Anyway,
Yeah, I'm
so
not really done yet with the. I'm going to jump in a little bit. Hold on a sec. The school on the hill, that's the location of National Junior College today, isn't it?
yes,
Um,
yes,
I
yes,
I actually was a student of NJC, but of course at the time it was at Linden Drive, and then when I became a teacher there, about 10 odd years later, it was on the Hillcrest Road, on the Hillcrest, right? But we
that's correct.
never knew anything about. I mean, the all the buildings were new, and we were not using the old Dunearn Tech buildings, and we never knew the connection, right, with the school that used to stand there, Dunearn Sec. So in a way, it's kind of been erased, right, from the history and memory of that place. As you said, that was an important school. It was one of the spearheads of our education program, our technical education move in the late 60s. In 1968, the Ministry of Education set up as a separate department, right, from the academic department, the technical education department, the TED. Lasted only a few years, right? But that was an important part of what the government wanted to do, that we desperately needed the technical manpower to go into the industries that we were trying to attract from overseas, as well as to retrain all these white collar staff. And your dad would have been one of them had he not had the accident to go into the technical job. So this was a very confusing and in some ways a very tumultuous time, right, for these clerical workers and white collar staff, as they had to pick up the tools and they never touched before in their life, and to work out the next phase of their life in the technical industry, and that's again part of my interest. Um, Charles, I wanted to ask you about the school. We're going to talk about the subjects later on, the curriculum. Tell us about the buildings.
Um,
You said
the
the workshops
the
were new, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
school
I
was
think
new.
what's what stood up on top of the hill was the main um, classes for the academic classes, and then flanking it on the left and the right are the science labs,
Yeah.
and then the workshops, both mechanical as well as woodworking workshops. They were basically like this classes, with uh, it was open air, and then it was also has just a wall, and then but interesting enough, it was not completely walled up from the corridor, so you still have a good airflow from top and bottom. Can be quite noisy when the classes are going on at the same time. Yeah. The school also had a library.
Mm.
Um, it was really new in many aspects. We could see, the grass which was kind of just growing, because they were at that year. I remember they were rushing like crazy to complete the school so that the students could come and start attending classes there.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, am I right to say then what was remarkable about these technical schools was everything was the same with the academic school except maybe the workshops, right? Of which there was it two or three? There was metal, there was wood. Was there another kind of workshop?
this would be the main technical education,
Yeah.
either woodworking or metalworking.
Mm, mm,
Um, before they further stream into specific areas. But if I may just go back on the subject of technical school, I mentioned about the 6 new schools that were
mm,
just being opened up almost at, the, at varying intervals, but pretty close together. This was to complement the two very well-known schools called Queenstown Secondary Technical School up in, I think, in Alexandra.
mm.
And the other technical school, very well known, is Tanjong Katong Secondary Technical School.
Right.
That was up in Marine Parade area.
Mm.
So these two schools required very good results. You need to have pure science, A maths. Basically, it's just really creaming off results from your PSLE before you were accepted into the school. And I think the MOE then also knew that it's really pushing it when limited spaces and all that. So they open up a new area through these 6 schools. The other schools, from memory, it's like Balestier Hill Technical School, Kim Seng Technical,
Mm.
um, and Tangning Technical. But many of these schools have been probably closed or merged with other schools.
Mm. I
Even
I
even the
remember I remember Kim Seng Tech. My sister went there, and I studied at River Valley, which was just next to it, and we would go to Kim Seng to do our technical.
yeah
Mm.
yeah. So back to the school, Dunearn Tech. The surroundings there were, I would say, quite ideal for learning and studying, because it's very quiet areas on top of the hill. Um, Huge uh, football, rugby field in below, which is next to the National Junior College. Um, it was ideal for sports. And then many of my cohorts, we later found out that actually they were more sports people than academic students, whether it's technical or study subjects. Um, and at that time also, we had teachers which were just fresh graduates, perhaps 3 or 4 years
Mm.
earlier, and they had at that time enrolled with the Teachers Training College, which was the training school for teachers. And I recall having some teachers that were actually quite fresh out of the TTC, and they had a challenge trying to manage some of us in the class, because you can imagine if these students are coming from diverse backgrounds,
Mm.
it's it in, on top of your teaching skills, you need to have a people's management skills too. And uh, with youth, you need a special set of skills how to relate to them. Yeah.
Mm. I want to come back to the teachers a bit later. So, orientation wise, how do you get into the school? Is it through Dunearn Road, or do you have to go around to the backside? You know what I mean. So right now, I think NJC. You want to go to NJC, the gate at Dunearn Road, that is a small gate, and the main gate is right behind. You have to actually circle around it, go kind of up the hill. Is that the case in those days?
That's correct. That's correct. I have deliberately omitted, two specific names. One was
Uh,
Raffles Park,
uh-huh.
actually where NJC on Linden Drive. It sits on this area called Raffles Park. And in during those days of the 60s, Raffles Park is very well known for upper class people living in that area. So if you tell someone I live in Raffles Park, it's as good as telling someone that I'm, staying in a good class bungalow. That would be the kind of comparison.
Mm.
And to access the school, really you have to come through Hillcrest Road. This is a road that would uh, it's off Dunearn Road, and it's a road that you will have to. Um, it's about a good 10-minute walk from Dunearn Road itself. You have to walk up a flat path and then climb up the hill.
Yeah.
It's a circular hill, and then you get up to on top of the school. That area was also had some private housing. Uh, it was right close to Watton Estate,
Mm.
Hillcrest and Watton Estate, that area. Um, and I think one of the um, feedback we had from house owners in the area, they were writing to the school principal to remind students that when they go to school in the morning and afternoon, they should keep quiet and then walk to school quietly, because with students, we have so much fun and talking, and so there was a lot of noise going on there. Yeah, but it's really coming in from Dunearn Road and walking that path up to the school hill. There is a cluster of schools there.
Mm.
They're all gone already.
Mm.
There was a primary school called Dunearn Primary School. It was right along Dunearn Road,
Mm.
and this was primary education. Then there was the Dunearn Middle School, which was actually a Chinese school, both Chinese and English school in that one. And then as you went up the hill, another next school was called Dunearn Vocational School.
Mm.
And then finally, you end up with Dunearn Secondary School, which is right on top of the hill.
Was there an integrated school?
Um, I believe the middle school, or they call it Dunearn Middle, was an integrated school.
Right. Okay. So there was actually a Dunearn family of schools, which actually makes sense why a Dunearn Tech would be set up there in the midst of this entire area, which, as you said, is an elite area, right? There are private houses there, and there's still today. We always hear stories of who live in those areas. And it's a little bit very interesting that technical school would suddenly just spring up, right? Over there in that area. It's not something that's going to happen today, right? For example. So now I think in NJ, it's been 20 years since NJC for me, right? But they use, so if you go into the school through the small gate along Dunearn Road, there is a track and field. Was it what? So that was a field also during your time. What was it used
Right.
for?
That field was served as softball, football, and rugby.
Hmm. There wasn't a track. Was there a running track?
There was a running track that was later on developed, because for years I remember when it comes for any of the track events, we will do it at Singapore Chinese High School, which was just opposite the road.
Right.
I mean, they were much better suited for all the track events. I think at that time it was a matter of priorities. They didn't put much emphasis
Mm.
on that.
Mm. How did you go to school?
Um, I used to ride a bus. I took a bus from Clementi onto uh, Beauty Bukit Timah Road on 7 Mile, and from there I'll catch a bus that will run along Dunearn Road and get to school, and then
So
walk
you needed
from.
to transfer, huh? There wasn't a
Yeah,
straight bus.
no, no,
Mm. Wow.
but it was fun.
So you had to walk the hill every day, is that right? Or you could go through the
Yes,
small gate? Was there a small gate?
the small gate was present.
Right.
Um, it was tricky there because to reach when you go through the small gate, the to reach the steps that you have to walk up to the crest of the hill, depending on the weather, quite often, it will be muddy, so you end up with dirty shoes and all that. But it's a much, I would say, more challenging walk. So the better way we all took was really along Hillcrest Road, walking along Hillcrest up to the crest of the hill. Just for location and directions, um, this cluster of schools that I mentioned to you on Hillcrest Road, there used to be that tally center that was located there
How do you
when
spell tally?
TELE center. It's short form for
Okay.
telecommunications
Okay. Yeah.
center. When they demolished Dunearn Primary, and yeah, the schools closer to um, Dunearn Road. I think what happened was due to all this build up and the levels of land from all this new private housing, that school became, and even including Dunearn School Field, was so low lying that often it will be flooded. And I just remember that on some days it will remain flooded for maybe like some days of the week until
Mm.
it completely dries up. Anyway, the the um, the later on they used that land for telecommunications by those areas. Those days was under the telecoms, and they would train technicians how to repair cables, how to repair lines, and all that at that center.